Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hobo with Wood. It's cold in the shop today. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm cold. I got the heat on, but this old house is it's insulated, but it's insulated in a way that it works kind of like a cooler. You let it get cold in here and it keeps cold in real well. It's an ice box in here. I have not been running the heat. Been trying to put that off as long as I could. And the last couple of nights we got down to the low 30s, or for everybody else in the world, we got down to close to 0 Celsius. And it's cold in here. I should have been having it run at a very low temperature instead of no temperature. But we'll get it warmed up. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's had a good week. We're going to do a little bit different today. I'm going to talk to you about, as the thumbnail said, what it say, minimizing waste, maximizing profits, and also share with you a tip that I've started doing where I'm actually giving away my items to generate revenue. And as we mentioned in last week's live stream, I had run out of my 300 by 300 premium Baltic birch, and I had already ordered some prior to going live last Saturday. And a few of you tried to order some then and made me aware, said, hey, it's not, the box of 45 is not listed anymore. And it's because they were out. And I recalled when I ordered mine, it said they were down to like 15 boxes. Well, mine still hasn't got here. It's supposed to have been here last Wednesday, and I got a notification the following Thursday that said, hey, your package is running late. Duh. It's supposed to have been here yesterday. It's running late, and it was rescheduled, and new anticipated date is Monday or Tuesday of next week. So I didn't have anything to work with in the way of inexpensive materials or any of my Baltic birch. But I got plenty of hardwoods here. And the hardwoods, they're not cheap. They're a little bit more, you don't want to do a whole lot of testing with hardwoods. You really want to have your design dialed in, or something that's kind of simple. You don't want to waste any expensive woods on a project trying to come up with a design. But my hardwoods, they're not 300 by 300 sheets. Most of them I will buy in, some of them are available in project packs that are 3 millimeters or 1/4 inch, somewhere in there. But then other times I'll actually find some really good, 1/2 inch or even 1 inch boards at a reasonable price. And I've got a friend local here that will help me process that wood, and we'll process it down and get it down to 4 or 5 or even 6 mil. But those boards will be typically 6 inches or sometimes 8 inches wide. So this is what I've got to work with, not the 300 by 300 measurements. And so my materials will dictate my design process. So if I had these and I'm like, okay, this is zebra wood. And zebra wood, once you put a finish on it, it's really, really pretty. But this stuff is a beast to cut with a laser, because you've got the 2 different wood types, or 2 different densities of wood within this material, your pulpwood or your softwood, and then and I forget what he called it. They told me the proper name for it, but the grains in here, the darker grains, they cut entirely different than the pulpwood. And so you got to really experiment and play with, and this is expensive wood to experiment and play with, but to dial in that laser so you can get a good, clean consistent cut to where, because if the laser's moving too slow as it's going across that pulpwood, it just burns it away and it almost vaporizing it, and then eventually cutting the grain. And what I ended up doing in order to prevent that with this is doing rapid passes and multiple passes so that it wasn't staying concentrated in any one area too long. And by speeding it up and just making lots of passes, it ended up cutting really nice and cleanly. And then I've got some hard maple that's got a little bit of curly in it, not much, but a little bit. And I ended up creating this multi-layer design. And some my patrons have already seen this. The Facebook group, Hobo with Wood group on Facebook, I think is what it's called. They've already seen this, but I used that zebra wood and the curly maple to create this it's a 4-layer design, and it's got the maple on top with alternating curly and maple, and then the full zebra on the back. And that turned out pretty nice. And I ended up putting a scripture down the middle of it, 1 John 4:7-8. Some of you would not care to have that, or you might want to make it more as like a Valentine's thing. That's something that's, imitable, or change it, put whatever verse you want to in it. But I called that my love cross. And I like that. I thought that was a good use of those 2 hardwoods that I had on hand. But I let the materials dimensions dictate my design, because obviously I can't have this designed any wider than the widest piece of material I had. See, I used up every bit of what I had there to get that full width of that cross. And then in addition to doing that, I created 2 different signs using the same artwork. I've got this one. It's a freestanding sign, and it's just a child's prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Amen. And it's got the stars and the moon and a little angel there praying. And this would be something that'd be kind of cute for the kids or the grandkids. And if you do art shows or craft fairs, stuff like that sells extremely well. It's very, very popular. And I'm going to show you how you can take and make these. This sign right here, this particular piece, I have, well, I got to do a calculator because I'm not good at thirds. Divided by third. This one sign right here, I might have $1 invested in that whole piece. And this is something that you could sell for, $5 or even $9.99, depending on your area, your market. But I took that same artwork and made this one, which is a hanger instead of a freestanding sign. And obviously it's a little bit bigger, but that one I might have $1 tied up in it and sell it for the same thing. You sell it for $5 to $10, depending on your market. And I also let the material dictate those signs so that I get the most out of my material whenever I'm cutting it out with the least amount of waste, maximizing the overall size of each piece and with as little waste as possible. And I also started doing something with my skeletons. Takes a little bit longer on the laser, but not long. But it makes organizing the shop so much better, so much easier. So I'm going to look at all those things and show you and tell you, my idea of what I've started doing. We designed this for the last week, I think, Christmas ornament. And I've actually started generating some revenue off of those already. And we're going to look at those, talk about those different strategies and business plans, ways to make some money, not just designing here. But we got the usual crowd, it looks like, in here on a Saturday early 3 afternoon for me. I know it's later in the evening for a lot of you guys that are here, and that's why we're doing this particular time slot, and also to keep from conflicting with others that'll be later tonight. So I just wanted to see everybody's in here. Say hey to everybody. I appreciate everybody's support and everybody being here today and your support. I see a lot of patrons in here. Thank you for your support. Without you, this would not be even feasible. No way I could do this. No way. So thank you. Thank you for your support. Just real quick, well, Terry, if you're already gone, you can always watch the replay. This is going to be a good show. I will do, if there's enough interest. We're not going to do a 5-hour show. I can promise you that. We're not going to do a 5-hour, 45-minute show or a 5-hour, 47. We're just going to be probably limited to an hour or 90 minutes if I can help it. But if there's enough interest to see how I set up that heart cross and the multi-layers on that, it's really, really, really easy. I'll do that after we talk about the business and the design and my design process on maximizing your materials. We'll look at that design. Yeah, and like Dave says, you guys, give it that like. If I'm not asking you to hit that like button now because you don't know if you're going to like this live stream or not. I don't want you to hit the like button just because you're here. But if you feel like this is a valuable video and you do learn some stuff from it, definitely hit that like and share it with any groups that you might be in. It's like, hey, this is some good strategies and good things to think about. Let's see here. And if there are any newcomers here, which I doubt there are today, if there's any first timers in here, give us a wave out and shout out. Say, hey, how you doing? But with these 56, I'm seeing in the comments a lot of the old familiar faces in the same familiar places, and I thank you for it. But if there are any newcomers, if you see anybody putting in just a number after their name, they just put in a 1 and an enter and a 2 and an enter. Every time they put in a number, it's indicating they've learned something new. So put in a 3, they've learned 3 things this video. So that's what that's about, and I encourage you to jump in and do the same thing with the comments. And if you have a question about something, and periodically I'll stop as I'm demonstrating stuff, and look for any questions. If you have a question, precede your question with 3 question marks. 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 question marks, and then your question. And that just jumps out at me in the feed as I'm looking at it, and I'll make sure to address that question. And same goes to comments. If you have a comment and you want to say, hey, that's a cool way you did that, but I got a better way, you stupid. Won't you do this? Use 3 exclamation points as a statement to get my attention. And I welcome any feedback. In fact, I don't know if it was last week or week before. I think it was, but I learned a couple of things in that live stream, and that was a first for me, and I was extremely grateful for that. So I encourage feedback. That's what we're here, is to exchange ideas, and hopefully I'll glean and gain a little something from this. Let's see here, just looking through real quick and make sure if I got anything that's outstanding. Bug flying in here. There's 2 questions from Dale. It says, I ordered an 8-inch by 4-inch Y for my exhaust system on my fiber in October. It still has not gotten to here. Well, I tell you what, Dale, I don't know where you're at geographically, but if you're in the U.S., a lot of our issues that we're running into, I believe, can be attributed back to those 2 or 4 days, ever how short it was. The longshoremen going on strike interrupted the chain supply just ever so briefly. But with a lot of manufacturers today, they're using that just-in-time inventory, which means people aren't keeping a surplus of inventory in stock anymore. It's a just in time. They ordering supplies and material to fulfill the need they're going to have, and they get that inventory and supply in just in time. Well, if they're using a just in time fill method and that supply chain gets interrupted even briefly, it throws a monkey wrench in the whole works for a little while for it to work it all out. So that's what I'm thinking. Connie says, how do you charge per laser minute? All right. Well, I don't look at it as per laser minute. I do and I don't. There are a couple of ways to think about this, Connie. If it's going to be a production piece, if it's something like this that I'm going to make and I'm going to sell, I'm going to make up a half a dozen of them. I'm going to take them to craft shows and craft fairs. Did I design the piece myself? My design time that I've actually got setting up and creating the piece, I might have 2 or 3 hours tied up in it. This one wasn't like that, but I'm, and then trial and error to get it right. Does it fit? Does it work? The cost of developing the product is one thing, and then your laser time. How much time is it sitting on the laser cutting out? So do I look at this as being the design time? If it's a product I'm going to be selling in mass quantities, hopefully, then I consider the design time kind of a cost of goods, or it's an expense. It's unrecoverable. It's not built into the cost of the goods being sold. So then it's like, all right, well, the cost of materials plus then the laser time. And generally, I feel like, what's minimum wage in your area? What is your time worth as an individual? If you were going to go to work, you want to work for $15 an hour or $25 an hour. I use $25 an hour. So if it's going to be on the laser for 15 minutes, then it's $4 or $5 in laser time, give or take, somewhere in there. So that, I don't know if that's as muddy as it can be, or if that explains it a little bit. But generally, I get $25 an hour laser time, and not taking into consideration the cost of the design. Now, if it's a one-off piece that I'm not selling lots of or multiples of, then I will include my design time into the cost of the good to recoup that to the person that I'm making this product for. Let's see here. Scrolling on down. Okay, got to the bottom. And I like Stacy's comment, and it is based a lot on where you're located too, on what you charge. She says they just raised minimum wage in California for hamburger slingers to $20 an hour. So if the fast food workers, and one of my first jobs was McDonald's, and that was one of my favorite jobs. But I was also 16 years old. It was one of my first jobs. And I think that's what fast food workers probably should and mostly be made of, is people who are teenagers, their first jobs, summer jobs, whatever, or even seniors who are just looking to supplement their income. But folks who are doing it because that's their career choice and you're planning on surviving off of that, I don't know that that's what that job was intended to be. It definitely was not what it was intended to be. And to be able to demand that I'm going to make $25 an hour for flipping hamburgers, that don't sit right with me. Let's just say I'm glad I'm no longer running a business with employees. I'm running a business, but no overhead, I got overhead. No employees, no drama, and no retail customers coming to the counter every 5 minutes. That's what gave me my heart attacks. No, thank you. Now, and Stacy says, yeah, they're not career jobs. Now, I will say this, Stacy. At the same time, I was working at McDonald's when I was 16 years old, and that was a long time ago. Long time ago. I was working there with a friend that I went to high school with, and she made that her career, but not as a hamburger flipper. She started out on the grill and working next to me. Then she became assistant manager. Then she became manager. Then she became district manager. And she retired from McDonald's. And by the time she retired from McDonald's, she was only working 9 months a year. She worked, I think, 9 months, and then she had accumulated with her time invested there 3 months of vacation. And she was able to work it out somehow that she only worked 9 months, and then she took 3 months off and didn't do anything. That's pretty darn good if you can get it. So it's as long as you don't want to stay in that one position, and they're moving those jobs outward, bringing in automation and all that. So they're not going to pay $25 an hour. They'll bring in automation that's going to flip the burgers and pull the fries. They'll automate as much as possible to keep from having to do that. But anyway, yeah, and you're right, Chris. Ain't nobody harder on myself than myself. But let's look at. In fact, let me show you this before we jump in. I'm working on another special project. This is one of those one-off custom pieces. This is a miniaturized test piece that I did today. I just got it off the laser a little while ago. This is a piece of 1/4 inch hickory, or it's about 6 mil hickory, and this is 2 feet long. It's 24 inches, and it's a mountain scene with the bears walking in front. The bears are cutouts. The bears and the trees are cutouts in there. And what this is going to be is actually going to be pretty cool. I got a friend who's got a cabin up in the mountains, and let's switch over here. I did 2 different versions. This one was the first version, and I did this one. And what that's going to be is that it's going to, this is a built-in fireplace in a log cabin, and there were vents at the top, and this is a return where it sucks air in to help circulate the air in and out the box of that built-in fireplace. And that's the reason those are cut out, is they still need to be vents. And this was a test piece out of cheap Luan. And now I'm going to do a nice finished piece out of hickory and have that engraved in there. And that's going to be really cool when I get done. But stuff like that, if you were doing it for not your friend, not one of the guys that helped save your life whenever you were having strokes, and also the one individual who said, you know what, you should get a laser. He's the one that was responsible for this whole creation of Hobo with Wood. So his price is a big old goose egg. But for pieces like that, custom one-offs, all the design time, the effort, the testing, and all that, you keep track of all of that. And something like that would be, potentially a $400 or $500 custom one-off piece, because there is a lot of time invested in all that. You can turn your test piece into a light bar. Yeah. There's a lot of things wrong with that, and that was a learning curve. In order to cut through this hickory cleanly and not burn it away, because this one, the little baby, it don't look bad if you don't know what to look for, but the little baby bear, there's lots and lots of burning or in between his legs right there. And it was just the hickory retains so much heat as it's being cut that when you pick this up off the laser, it's hot to touch. So in order to cut through this, I ended up having to do cleanly. I ended up having to do 2,500 millimeters a minute at 100% power, 10 passes, move on to another piece, then come back and start over. It took 20 passes at 2,500 millimeters a minute, 100% power, to cut cleanly through this without burning away excessive wood, because it just retained so much heat. Had to cut partly, move on, come back, let it cool off, and come back and finish. But let's jump in here and let's talk strategy in LightBurn and laying out your designs and how your material will dictate the size of your item, and so that you can maximize your material. If and I'm going to no, I have not received the birch yet, Stacy. I'm still in, and I was talking about that prior to you jumping on here. I got a notice from Amazon, said that maybe Monday or maybe Tuesday, there's a kink in the supply chain here on the East Coast. So things got really messed up for a while. So I've marked my spot. If you have questions or comments pertaining to what we're getting ready to look at and discuss, pop it in there, and then I'll pause periodically, take a look at it. And when if you learn something from this, if you glean something from this, drop that 1, 2, 3, whatever, however things you learn, keep the comments going, and so that the algorithm knows you're not asleep. And hopefully you'll find some value in this and take a little something from it. We're not going to spend a ton of time with this because it's going to be a real quick demonstration. And then if there's anybody that wants to look at how I designed that cross, you can say, hey, I want to see that. And we'll do that. It's a pretty quick design. But if you're tired of seeing crosses, then you can either just keep your hand down or know that, okay, well, now he's going to do a cross, I'm out. But we'll save that to the end here. So I marked my spot, and I'm going to switch this to LightBurn and jump over here, and we're going to get rid of that. And if, like I said, first I'm going to say if I'm working with my 300 by 300 material, then if I'm working with a design, it's going to be that sign. What size does it need to be? I don't know. What do I know? Well, the only thing that I do know is the size of my raw material. It's 300 by 300. So I'm going to draw out a 300 by 300 square. Put it down in my corner. And I know that. That's a given. That's something that I know for sure. And I want to make 3 signs or as many signs out of this as possible. What size do they need to be for it to look good? And the signs plus the feet for mounting it. So if this is 300 by 300, and when I'm cutting my material, I want to leave a little bit of a buffer around the edge, so I don't have to worry about any issues there with framing. I don't want to make it so difficult to frame up that I'm like, gotta move it, bump it, zip it. So on a 300 by 300, I usually design within about a 290 millimeter area. So with that being the case, I'll take that and I'm going to do an offset of 5 millimeters. Do not delete my original and say, okay. And now that gives me a 290 millimeter or square to create my design in. And if I take and say, I want it to be rectangular in shape, I'm like, okay, well, how big, how tall, how wide? I don't know. And let's say, if I start looking at that, and if I take that and move it up into the top corner of, not like that, stupid, undo. I want to move that rectangle into that corner of that square. So, okay. How many of those, if I say Control D, or I don't even duplicate them, I'll use the array tool and then create rows with 0 Y spacing. And I've got some space down here that's left. I'm like, okay, so that could be a little bit taller. And so I'm like, okay, well, how much of that's left? So temporarily, I might say okay for that. and then come down here and measure from here to here. And that's rounded off as 12 millimeters. So now I can say, okay, that's a distance of 12, and I've got 3 pieces there. Say, okay, go away. Get rid of these 2. That's 12. So I can add an additional, I'm going to change my anchor point to that top corner up there so that stays where it's at. And I'm going to add 4 millimeters to the height. Right now it's at 92.76 or say 93. We'll just round it up and just say 97 millimeters. Got my aspect ratio locked, 97 millimeters. Now that brought it down, out, and over. And now when I do that array in 3 rows, that fills up and just a little bit more, and that's fine because I've still got that buffer. And if I say okay, and I could have grouped that with the array tools, group those. And now if I centered that up in there, horizontal center, there it gives me the same distance at the top and the bottom. So that potentially would be my 3 signs. If that length, if that was wide enough, and just eyeballing it, I'm okay with that. I haven't done any artwork yet. I'm still trying to figure out what the dimensions are going to be of my actual sign. And then I will, once I've created the dimensions, then I'll start laying in my artwork to fit within the parameters of these pieces. And then as needed, I can change those. Now, as this stands right now, I've got these set up so that they would actually be, there's no way to put the feet on them to do the stand. And there's nowhere to put the ears on them to put holes in the top if I'm going to do it as a free hanger, a wall hanger. So but I've got my basic dimensions of what that sign needs to fit within. So then I'm going to think about, well, is it going to be, a freestanding sign? And if so, the material, I know what I'm making it out of. How wide or how tall do my tabs need to be in order for my feet to slide onto? Because I want to take that into consideration in the overall height of the design. And if I'm not going to do a freestanding piece, if I'm going to do the wall hang or a hanging sign, and I don't want to put holes down here in the face of it, so I've got those extra tabs added to them there, then that is going to it needs to be taken into consideration in the overall height of the piece. So I'm pre-planning the overall sign before I even start with my artwork, because I can make my artwork fit within the dimensions, but I want to get as much out of my material. And if you're selling something at a show or a craft show, size matters. I see it a lot here in Hobo with Wood. Size matters. The bigger the item is, the more perceived value they see, it is easier to get the money out of. You will have just as much work, and sometimes even more so, putting together the smaller projects. But to tell them I want to sell that small little sign that's going to sit on their nightstand because it's only 3 inches wide for $9.99, probably not going to happen. You can get $4.99 out of it, but this, I don't, especially in today's world, when the man flipping hamburgers is making $25 an hour, I should be able to sell that for $9.99. I should be able to sell that for $10 all day long. And with what I'm getting ready to show you, as you see, we're going to get 3 of these signs out of one piece of 300 by 300 material. For me, that represents about $2 in cost. So in material I have $2. I'm going to get 3 signs out of it. So and again, thirds mess me up. Calculator, $2 divided by 3. So I'm gonna have about 67 cents tied up in this, not counting the finish or the laser time, but 67 cents. And then I'll probably put one single coat of lacquer on here just to give it a little bit of sheen and to make it slick to the touch. And so with one little light coat, at best or at most, I might have, $1.20 to $1.50 tied up in that sign. So to take that sign that you have less than $2 in it and sell it for $10, and you're getting three of them out of one single piece of $2 material, taking $2 worth of material, turn it into $30. I do that all day long. And this is a simple piece that's you're not having to figure out the gears and the alignment and all that. You just cut it out, glue some feet on it, and Bob's your uncle. It's ready to go. So looking for any questions, comments since my last mark. There's my mark. Let's see here. Wow, that he didn't mark it, but he says he ordered some of the wood from him on Tuesday, and it does. I guarantee you, Lyle, it's about geographic location. That supply chain getting interrupted for just a little bit, depending on where you're at, it really would throw a kink in the works. Comments. You should have your 300 by 300 box in your art library. Oh, my tool frame. Yeah. It's by the time I go to my art library and grab it and double click it, bring it in, I can just draw a square and tell it to go to 300. But yeah, use it all the time. You're absolutely right. Question mark. Why, when I get a file from you and now I have the same laser as you, like the really like this design, it will take me 3 hours to print and cut? Huh? Why, when I get a file from you now, I have the same laser as you, the Rolly XW, like this design, it will take me 3 hours without. I don't know why it's taking you, because it don't take me 3 hours to do this right here and I'll show you my estimated time. When you get my files, do not pay any attention to any of the settings and speeds and with the layers. You need to set your own power and speed settings, because everybody's going to vary. You've got the same laser. You might even have the same Baltic birch, but some folks have a hard time believing this, but it is a fact that your geographic location will affect your laser's capability. The humidity in your shop will affect your laser's performance. All kinds of things come into play when it comes to cut and engrave on your settings. And you should never, even the libraries you get from Rolly, and it's extensive. Dimitri did an extremely awesome job creating this huge library of cut settings. But those are springboards. Those are a place to start from. And because there's not even a setting for the hickory that I did all this testing on to find that it took me 20 passes with a pause between 10 passes to get, that was all done from just trial and error, trying different things. But I don't trust any settings that are in my files, and you just have to get familiar with your laser's capabilities, but none of them should take hours to do, especially a simple project like this. Comment. I loved learning the intersection trick for staining layers and in process of completing the in the classroom with Hobo Daniel project. So my brain is struggling today, and I apologize. I don't normally read like I'm handicapped, but today I am slightly handicapped. So much to learn in the last two live streams. Well, I'm glad that you did. It's encouraging seeing, that comment right there from Stephen probably prefers Stephen. That's why he has it in there. My name is Stephen, and I cannot stand Stephen, because the only time I heard Stephen is when I was in trouble, and Stephen, it's like, oh God, what do I do now? Nobody calls me Stephen except for my immediate family, and usually when I hear it, it's because I'm in trouble. So I prefer Steve. So Stephen's that comment he's got there too looks totally, simple, but that right there is as valuable a comment as I see of any comment that's made, because tells me that, hey, this was not wasted time. He's already learned 2 things in this stream already. And that's all awesome. I love to be able to share and what I've learned. And I've learned from trial and error. And I am not a my ways are my ways, and there's always another way. And that's what I'm doing, is sharing you my ways. And anybody else that's sharing something that says, oh, that's wrong. Well, if they say it's wrong, well, they're narrow-minded. Because if we get the same place, doesn't matter. It wasn't wrong. It's just different. And there's nothing wrong with different. It's always a good thing to know multiple ways to achieve the same thing. Let's see here. Comment. A giant version of what you're selling is a good way to get eyes on your items you are selling at market. Yeah, to make, something that jumps out for people. And as long as you've got the material to do it with. And that's kind of what this is more about, Chris. You're absolutely right. That's an attention getter. But when you are sitting in your shop and your material has not arrived for going on 10 days, and you've got your skeletons to work with and some other raw materials, well, you got to be able to, you have to know how to design to work within the parameters that you have. It'd be great to make that 24-inch sign, because I can do it here, but I don't have the material to do it with. So this week I've been working with what I have and what can I do. It's like this, when I did this sign, I did not have a 300 by 300 piece of material laying around the shop to do it with. I made this out of one of my skeletons. And this is what, if you're not aware of it, it happens. This is what I refer to as a skeleton. Obviously, this is one of the pieces left over from one of the crosses. Well, I had a piece of material in my skeleton pile that had a piece in it that was large enough to cut out this section of the sign. I had to go grab another skeleton to cut the feet out. But as I did the design, as I was creating it, and I knew I was going to post this on Hobo with Wood, I went ahead and set this all up in the design so that when you download it, there are 3 signs already nested together on a 300 by 300 toolpath. So all you have to do is drop it into your workbed and start cutting out 3 pieces. If you don't want 3, you just delete them and do whatever. But and that's I try to use 100% of the material when I'm designing. Question mark. I bought a plan off Etsy, and it's bigger than a 12 by 12. Is there a way to scale? Yes. Is there a way to scale plans with lots of cuts? Yes, but here's your problem. Jeffrey, you can't, if you can get it into LightBurn, it's completely scalable. The problem is if it's got a lot of intricate cuts, really small pieces, and you scale it down, well, now those either will just burn away or become problems. And so that's why typically if I'm doing a really intricate design with lots of cuts, I will design it as small as I would anticipate making it. That way you can always scale it up. And that does not create a problem. But when you scale it down, if you got to scale it down just 10%, maybe not so much of a problem. But you start scaling it down 25, 30%, then you can run into issues with the cuts getting too small and it just blowing material away. So that would be your only potential issue there with scaling it down, is losing detail. Let's see. And that's not first thing he should be checking is drawing units. I don't know if Stanley, I don't know if you're referring to me or somebody else, but if you're talking about inches or millimeters, I work in both. I'm in the US, the standard is imperial inches, but I do work a lot with metric, and I like to design in metric. But whenever I'm measuring something, and if I go to my hardwoods supplier, this is there it is. If and I have not measured this. If I take my rule and measure that across, that's 6 inches. It's not done in metric. It's done in standard. So I will work in both. If that's a comment directed at what I was doing, I work in both units, metric and imperial. Questions coming. Okay, good. All right, mark this spot. All right, and now back over to LightBurn. So as I was saying, now I've got the rough dimensions of each individual sign, but is it going to be one that's going to have the feet on it or the tabs on it so for the feet to stand up, or is it going to be a free hanger with the holes up here? So now what I'm going to do is I've got that is going to be my overall size. It's grouped. Let's ungroup it. That's my overall size. So I'm going to duplicate that, and keeping my anchor point in the top, I'm actually going to do top center, and I'm going to reduce my height by 3 millimeters. So I'm going to say 94 millimeters. And actually, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to unlock my aspect ratio and reduce that by the material thickness, which is an average of 3 mil. So I'll put that at 94. And so that just made room for my 3 millimeter tabs to protrude down the bottom. And I have my design area here. And I'm going to take that, and I will go ahead and I would put my tabs on there, nest those together so that I have all 3 of those. And then to do tabs are really, really, really simple. I'm going to get rid of this particular tool path that's in the way right now. I no longer need it, but I want to put tabs on this piece right here. If I want them to be 50 mil by 3 mil, then I will tell it to be just that, 50 mil by 3 mil. And that's going to be my tab. And that 50 is going to be too long. How long is that overall piece? That is 187. So actually, I'm not going to do that. That's 187. Then width wise, I'll tell it 187, and I'm going to divide that by 5. And that's 37.4. And why do 5? Because that'll give me space here, a tab, space, a tab, and a space. And that'd be 2 tabs. So, and then I can take that, dock it, select that one, dock it in the right and the bottom. And then I'll do an array of that one, do columns, 5 columns with no Y or no X spacing. Say okay, and then I could do 2 tabs in the middle, or do them over here. Now, and in fact, this is what I did. I left it on the, and I'm going to show you this just because something else you have to kind of pre-think. Delete that one and delete that one. I'm like, okay, well, that works. If I was to drop those down and put them on the bottom, in fact, if I group all of those, group them, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these guys because I don't need those anymore. Now I've got that group, arrow it down, and then select this one and Alt-Shift-V, and that bottoms them up. Now the problem with that positioning, this one is just fine. But this guy right here and this guy right here, it's over here to the edge of my material. And so when I go to put my foot on there, or the base that's going to stand on, the base is going to extend out here past that. And if I don't want that to happen, then what I will do is ungroup that. I'll go into my settings and see what my settings are. They're at 8 mil for an arrow movement. And I'll leave that as 8 mil. I'll select that one and just arrow over one time. Select this one, arrow over one time. And now I know that that's 8 mil from the edge. So that information is going to be extremely valuable when I go to set up my foot to go on the bottom. So I'm going to select those guys again, group that, select that, and weld them together. And now that piece is the right dimensions. I don't know where that guy come from. Get rid of him. He don't need to be up there. So that gives me that. And now I just need my feet. And I've got all this material over here that's potential waste that I will use to generate my feet. And also, can I still control? Nope, I should have done this beforehand. I'm going to, in fact, I'll go undo, 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 undo. So now get rid of that guy. Now that I've got just that rectangle, if I hold my control button, I get that little purple dot that pops up right there. And I can put a radius that way, a concave radius, or if I undo it, I can hold my control and move it counterclockwise or rotate it inwards, and it gives me a regular radius. But I want to do the concave radius, and I'll just do what looks good about there. And that looks good. Now that also affects my positioning for these guys and also what the overall length is. So these are some of the problems I run into when you're designing. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work. You had that set up, but now you just changed all that because you changed that concave and all that. So those need to be repositioned, but not only repositioned, but they're also, are they too big now? Yeah, probably. They don't need to be that big for that area that goes across there. So I will go back here and real quick, just hit the delete button, get my ruler and measure that guy right there. And it's 162 mil, and say, okay, and just draw out a rectangle. I ain't got to worry about the dimensions right now because it's going to be 162 mil divided by 3. So it's 54 mil and 3 high. Not divided by 3. Should have divided that by 5. 162 divided by 5. There we go. So now with that, I can put that right there to that corner. Oh, didn't go to the corner. Get that bullseye and snap it. Well, it's not going to snap. There we go. Duplicate it. Bring it over. Snap it to the same corner. And then Control D, duplicate it again, move it out of the way, hold my shift button, select that, tell it to go to center. Now that's centered up. Now I want to move those 8 mil. I moved it in, select those two, group the 3 of them, weld that together. Those didn't weld because the position, and every once in a while you'll get that. They were exactly where they needed to be because they were just slid over, but it did not weld those accordingly. So when that happens, instead of spending a whole lot of time trying to move those around and get them exactly right, get those barely overlap so that they weld into place, don't worry about that because the tools in LightBurn make this problem easily fixable. Instead of worrying about getting them exactly right, just know what and actually my control arrow movement is set to that's 8 and 1. It's supposed to be 1 even, and this should be we're going to do this at a 1/2 mil and say okay. So now I'm gonna hold my control button and just arrow up, and that's a 1/2 mil lifted. Now with that, select that, weld them together. Those are now welded in place. And now I can use my rule to measure that. And it's right now, that one's at 2.5. Say, okay. And I want them to be 3 mil for now. I will go into tools, resize slots and selection, change my tab height, tell it 2.5 mil and make sure that my tolerance is set high enough that it recognizes all 3. Because if I did 0, it don't recognize those because those are not 2.5 mil. I usually have it at about a 0.4 tolerance, 0.4 millimeter. That sees all 3 of them, tell it to apply. Now all of those are set and even. They're all 3 mil, and say, okay, done. So that's set and ready to go. Now I just had to create my feet for it. And the feet are real simple. They're just going to be simple rectangles. And, how far did I want them, protruding out? And this is where you get your stability. If you go too narrow, then or not tall enough, then they're not going to be wide enough sitting underneath the base, and it becomes top heavy and easily tipped over, top heavy, tippy. Here, go back. What was that measurement? It was 32.4. So this, I'm going to do 32.4, which is the width of that slot. And I want 8 mil on either side of it. So I'm adding 16 mil plus 16 mil. That's the width of each of those feet. So now whenever I take that and put it right at the corner of that base, that 8 mil spacing I did will be 8 mil on either side, and that'll be centered up. So now I just need to do another rectangle that's 32.4 mil and 3 mil high. And now hold my shift button, select that, and tell it to go to center. That's centered up. Hold my control, select that, hold my control button, and I'm going to give these a rounded foot. Select both of those, group them together. Now that's grouped together. Now I'm going to need 3 of those so I can use the array tool. And if I actually know I'm going to do 3 signs on here, then I'm going to go ahead and do, and then you can just put in here 9 of them and say, okay. Oh, 9 won't fit in that way. So undo that. Array. How many can you get down there? There's 6. And if we did 2 columns, it's 12. You don't need all 12 of those. So you can select those 3 and delete them. Take that, do your array tool, and you want 3 rows, and say okay. And now you have 3 sign templates in a 300 by 300 piece of material that is ready to receive whatever custom artwork you want to put in there to make whatever sign you want to put in, and create 3 pieces that you're going to sell for about $10 a piece out of a $2 piece of material. And if you do something like this, set you up a template like that and in an array and save it in your art library, or just save it in a signs folder as blank template. Then next time you go into Hobby Lobby, they got all those stupid signs they're selling for $30 and $40 a piece, stamped out of cheap aluminum. Take you some photographs of all the funny sayings that are around there. You can even just go on Google and Google funny signs that are selling. And, take that verbiage and implement it into your artwork that you got to make those signs. The actual sign shape is already done. You've got that saved. And this is that shape you can use over and over and over again to create all kinds of stuff. So you don't have to set that up every single time you're doing it. No questions or comments. Okay, good. That's good. Like I said, I love seeing the 2s, the 1s and 3s. Jim's learned 3 things. That's awesome. Ed's a regular, and he's learned a couple of things today. Dave's learned 3 things. That's awesome. Now I'm going to take a brief second while we're stopped, and Dale says, hey, I've learned 3 things. That's awesome. To every one of my patrons, I've already said thank you, but if you turned in late, maybe you missed it. My patrons make this channel possible, folks. And there are a few folks that you guys don't see in the stream. They don't join in on the chats, and that's fine for whatever reason, maybe they're watching it on the TV. And when you're watching YouTube on TV, the chats are always hard to contribute with. But there are folks out there, and I just thank you, Chuck. Chuck has been a longtime supporter of this channel. He's been a regular supporter from, even 2 years ago. Every week I receive a gift from him, and I thank you, Chuck. There are many, many more that are not just patrons, but other regular contributors. And there are several that are in this stream today, and I don't want to call out anybody's names that, and like I said, Chuck is probably here or he'll see this, but he's not here, and he's not, and you guys don't even know he's here. So I don't feel bad calling him by name, but the rest of you, and you know who you are, you're like an uncle, and I appreciate you. I couldn't do this without you. If you are not a patron, and that's something you just don't do, and I get it. I'd never heard of Patreon until I started this thing a year and a half, 2 years ago. And the idea of signing up as a patron and a monthly contributor, that was something that I just was like, man, ain't nobody going to do that. That was a hard pill for me to swallow, to conceive the idea that people would do that. But I did, and they do, and I'm thankful. But I don't know that I would. So I don't give anybody the side eye for not doing it. But if you've been in these streams for the last year, we're coming up on a year of me doing this solo, and you're not a patron, and there are lots of folks that are not here that I haven't seen here in this stream today, and I haven't seen him here, so I'm going to acknowledge him because I haven't seen him. Moses, if you're in here, I'm sorry I didn't see you posting, but Moses almost always is throwing out a super thanks, and I appreciate that, and there are patrons who also do super thanks, patrons who do so much more, like I said, like an uncle, and it's extremely appreciative. But if you don't fall into any of those groups, if you're not a patron and you haven't ever done a super thanks, I'm going to take a page. In fact, I used to give credit to one of my managers. He said, one of my sales managers, when he was trying to close a deal, he's like, go in there and ask for that. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And he says, you'll never get it if you don't ask for it. And I'm like, okay. Well, it turns out that me giving him credit wasn't necessarily right, because Mahatma Gandhi is actually one of the first ones who was ever quoted was, you won't get it. In fact, it was, you don't get it if you don't ask for it. If you don't ask, you won't get it. That was Gandhi's. If you don't ask, you won't get it. And thank you, Doug. Doug beat me to the punch. Doug's throwed out a $20 super thanks, and I appreciate you. But I wasn't even going to ask for the super thanks, but I'm grateful for anybody that does. But if you've been over to hobowithwood.com, what I'm doing today, I would rather share with you it's like I had to get the pilot light went out on my heat. I couldn't even get the heat. I had to have somebody come over and show me how to set the pilot light. And as I said, instead of you doing it, show me how to do it so I can do it myself the next time it happens. I will gladly. I love sharing with you what I learned and how to do these designs, and you not have to go to the website and buy something, because if you can do it yourself and save yourself, and then plus, like I said, learn to save them as templates, and now you've got that work already done. Man, next time you need to do a sign, you don't have to go and recreate it all. You've already got it. But if you haven't been over to the website, or you haven't bought anything, you haven't done super thanks, right now, I need you to do that. It's been a rough couple of months, and I need your support. So if you have ever shared, especially if you've shared, 4s and 5s, that you've learned stuff in the videos and you've not bought anything from the website because you haven't needed to, great. You can, throw in super things out there, or go to the website and buy files that you know you can recreate, but just the way you get something for your money, you get the files and you don't have to go recreate them. But as Gandhi says, you don't get it if you don't ask. So this is why I stopped briefly to ask. And if you're watching this in the replay, and let's see here, banners, and I should have had this running. There's 2 ways you can contribute: the PayPal me/Hobo Laser, and then also the Patreon option there too, or Zelle, I should say. Zelle is cool because I get 100% of that. PayPal takes 15 or 20%. Okay, yeah, and Dave says, "Go gold as you get all the files for free." I've learned so much. The gold level the gold level patron sponsorship is a really, really good deal. And yeah, and I'm hoping that it just really starts to tick now that we cleared that 10,000 mark. John says, I watched Clack Shack on a couple of font installs. I downloaded, then I installed it in Art Library was okay. I downloaded, then installed an Art Library was okay. Don't follow that. I don't typically put my fonts in an Art Library. Then when I moved the download file to my laser project off the desktop, it deletes it from the library. If you're talking about actually putting it in the art, you should download your fonts to your font folder in your actual computer's font library. And that's where LightBurn pulls the fonts from. LightBurn will pull anything you have in your font library into LightBurn. I wouldn't put that into a separate LightBurn library, because if you have something in it, like you said, you've got it on your computer in your downloads, and you put it over in that art library, and then you delete or move the original destination, LightBurn's looking to go to that original destination to pull that in. Now you've moved it or deleted it, and it's like, what do I do? They don't know what to do. So your fonts should be installed in your font library in your computer. John says they were images. Okay. All right. So maybe you had something like art library, alphabet switch. Maybe you had something like this, where these are the alphabets that, let's delete that. These are the alphabets done for engraving and monogramming and stuff like that. And these are all art libraries. Well, if it was in fact images, then, and you need, I don't know how you set up your original art library, but in mine, because organization is everything, because and it needs to be in the same place every time and get into that routine so that that's where to put it, and LightBurn doesn't know it, have to go look elsewhere. Switch. So in mine, if I pull up my folder and I go to my desktop, come on, desktop. There we go, desktop. And then I've got a LightBurn folder, and I open up that folder. Then I have an art library folder in there, and there are all of my art libraries. And I will, anytime, like you say, you downloaded something from Clack, well, you download it into your downloads folder, but then you need to move it over into that specific folder for your LightBurn art, so that it's whenever it knows that's where its destination's at. Done. And those images are still considered a font. Each letter is a different image. Well, if it's if it's a true font, then it should be saved in your font library, not in an image library. If it is a font and you want to save it in your art library, I would not save it as, in fact, I don't even know that it would save it as a font in the art library. But if it did, I wouldn't. I would right click it and trace it, convert it to an image, and save the image and not a font. I would convert it to a path. I would convert it to a path and not leave it as a font. That's just me. All right. Question. Mark. All right. So we are at 110. Oh, wait a minute. I see something up here I want to address. Stacy says, if I had the means to be a platinum patron, I would. Free is nice, but not the reason I'm a patron. And I've got gold, silver, and bronze patrons in Patreon, but I do have a fourth tier out there, and it's the platinum level. And I set it up as a joke. But if somebody actually signed up for a platinum patron, I would definitely do everything. The platinum level, it gets all the benefits of gold, silver, and bronze. Plus, for once a month, I will fly to your house, cook your dinner, and discuss anything LightBurn related for as long as you want to. For $5,000 a month, that's what you get as platinum. I did ungroup them, then convert them to a path, and then regrouped each one. Yeah. And then bring each one in as a path into the LightBurn. The problem you had was just the simple fact that you had it in a destination and saved it into the LightBurn art library. And then when you deleted that destination, it confused everything. You put all of your LightBurn art into one folder in a known position. I've got my LightBurn art in a subfolder of my LightBurn program, and then that way that's linked to that destination, and it ain't going anywhere. I just keep building that folder and adding to it. But the minute you deleted it, you deleted the original source, and you had not saved it from another source. You deleted the source. You got confused. Simple. Well, there's a famous fella there. You guys know that fella? I grew up watching him on YouTube too. He was very influential in me getting into this laser routine and creating the channel. I learned, in fact, if it hadn't been for Clack, because Clack is a real big supporter, or he likes his X tools. The X tool drove me crazy. I had problems after problems, and it may have been a combination of the limitations of the X tool D1 that I had, and my limited or complete lack of knowledge on how to work around its limitations. But I learned so much from watching him on how to overcome its limitations. And so if it hadn't been for the stuff I learned from watching him about the abilities and what he does, I would have probably booted that thing a long time ago. I did get rid of it pretty quick. And in fact, I actually gave that laser away. But yeah, and what's he say? He says, I use one folder for all. Yep. That's same thing. I've got my materials. I got my cut libraries in one folder. I got my art libraries in another folder. Organization is the key, guys. So, definitely put those into a known location fixed. And you can't have them happy-go-lucky. Organize those folders. Put them in one spot, and then make sure you're not deleting any of your sources before you get them over there and saved. All right, so we're 1:15 in. We got 15 minutes before I want to call this quits. And I believe if you want to, so at this point, if any of you guys, because I still get these naysayers out there, I don't want to see it cross. I don't want to see it cross. You know, I feel like I got vampires sending me comments because the cross offends them so bad. But if you want to see, why would I do it down here? If you want to see in the next 15 minutes how quick it is to set up this 4-layer design, I'll do that. If I get 10 people right now that say, I want to see it, I want to see it, I want to see it, then we'll do that. If not, we'll just cut this live stream short. Jeffrey says, how can you resize a slot in LightBurn that has one open end? That's a good question. And it's really, really, really easy. So while people are, and in fact, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like we're going to have 10 folks. So we'll show that. But before we do, Jeffrey had a question about resizing a slot width, resizing a slot, and it's got an open end. And that's real simple, because what you have to realize is LightBurn only needs one criteria to recognize it as a slot, and that is it needs 4 nodes. So let me go up here and turn Jeffrey's comment off, switch over to LightBurn. And what he's referring to is if you've got a design, whatever it is, and it's got an external slot over here, and I'm going to move it right against the side. And we got another one, Control D, duplicate it, put it in the middle, Control D, and put it against the side. Not the top, dummy. Undo that. The side. And just to make sure they're overlapping, I'm going to move that out a little bit. We're not worried about sizing or positioning so much as it is just how do you do it. So if those were all grouped together and I subtract that from there. Oh, wrong button, stupid. A, subtract B. So there's the external slot he's referring to. So how do you resize that? You don't do it at least I think that's what you're referring to, this being an external slot. You don't do it any differently. And if we turn this over to nodes, and I got to ungroup it, there you see 4 nodes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So since it has 4 nodes there, and this one being the internal, it still has 4 nodes. LightBurn does not differentiate internal from external. But if for some reason you did not have these nodes exactly parallel to one another, let's say if I come up here and I insert a node right there, and I would delete this one right here, and I look at what size that it's 8.04, and I go into my, actually select the whole thing, tools, resize slots and selection. My all material thickness is 8.04, and I want to change the slot width. Well, that was not far enough away that it didn't recognize it. It still sees those 4, but you see it's whoppy jawed. There, when I didn't change that one, it's perfect. It still recognizes that as a slot. But if you get them far enough away from each other, or if for some reason, cancel that, do this right here. Go into node editing, and I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put a node right here and a node right here, and I'm going to change that to a smooth, move it up here. And now that's rounded over. And this is why I did not like boxes.py. In fact, if you are having problems with a file and it just is not recognizing those external slots, and it doesn't even have to be external. Boxes.py would even do this sometimes with your internal slots. If you didn't have your settings correct, it would put a radius on those corners. And when you put a radius on those corners, it puts extra nodes in there. And so now you've seen just a second ago before I put that radius on there, it recognized that, but I don't expect it to now. Resize selection, slot width. It still did. I didn't have a great enough distance or whatever. But if you've got a radius on there and you've got too many nodes, it will not recognize that. It's a cancel, node editing. Let's put a node over here. Insert, tools, resize slots and selection, slot width. There. Now see that how it's changing? It wants to go to that node instead of out here. So it has to be 4 nodes. They have to be parallel to each other in order to keep everything correct. But that would be why an external node wouldn't change if it had a radius on there or they were improperly placed. But let's jump over here to the cross real quick because that's what people want to do. And I'm still going to try to do this in 10 minutes or less. We're going to try. We're going to do this fast. Cancel. We're going to get rid of all this. And I do have, I've done enough crosses here lately that I ended up creating my library with my 2 different formats. I've got the aspect ratio of 4:3 and 5:4. And I've got a heart. And I'm going to bring in my basic heart. I'm going to take this heart and I'm going to bring it up here to the top and put it in the center. And I'm going to make sure that the top of that heart is outside the original toolpath and it extends out a pretty good ways. And this is more about what looks good. And I'll show you that in a second because if you shrunk this down to where you're only a little bit of an overlap and you still had it high enough that it worked with there, if you don't get this wide enough to get this curve out here far enough, then you lose some of its appeal when you weld it all together. So give it a good, and it is about aesthetics, just what looks good to you. But it's important you keep that there. Then come in here, grab another tool path, and I'm going to connect my 4 points in the center. That gives me a center place for this heart to rotate around. So I'm going to select the heart, hold my shift button, select that square, go to my circle array. I'm doing 4 copies, starting at 0, ending in 360, and that position these 3 exactly where they need to be. Say, okay. I should have left them ungrouped. Now I'll grab this bottom one and arrow it down to where it's just outside there. Now I will grab all 4 of them and group those, Control D, duplicate them. Now that those are duplicated, hold my shift button and select the original outer perimeter cross and tell it to weld together. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it out of the way temporarily. So those are my original cross placements. And now you see I've got these dog bone looking things going on. But how do I get my contours? Well, I'm going to do it hopefully real quick. You know what? Dadgummit. Am I not showing y'all? Duh. I'm glad I seen me. Let's try that again. I wasn't far enough down to see the comments that I wasn't sharing. So backing up, and we'll add some time to this. Oh, way to go, stupid. Delete that. Share the screen. All right. Delete that. Way to go, dummy. Way to go, dummy. That's okay. We'll just add time. So like I said, I've got in my library crosses. Got to learn how to spell crosses. And I'm going to bring in my 5x4 cross. And I'm going to bring in one of my hearts. It's just a basic heart. Now, everything about these are symmetrical. And it's important that you have your symmetry right, or else whenever you go to put layered designs together, you could have some alignment issues because it just can cause some issues. And if you're not sure if your piece is symmetrical, then what you can do to ensure that it is, take and draw you a rectangle. right there at that point. Make sure it overlaps far enough down. Double check and see that you're in the point of your heart or whatever shape you're working with. And at the other end, you're right in the point. So it's definitely in the middle. And now you go up, arrow it up to make sure you're encompass it all. Select your heart and then select your toolpath. Alt-Shift-C to cut. Select this side and delete it. Select that half of it. Control-D, duplicate it, mirror it, and then select them both. Alt-Shift-V to put, not VH. Undo that. Alt-Shift-H to move them together horizontally. You can see they're grouped, even though they're not really grouped with anything. So ungroup them. Then Alt-J to join them. And now that's joined together. It's one piece. And it is going to be perfectly symmetrical because it's just a mirror image of one side on creating a perfectly symmetrical heart. Now I'm going to move that into place. I'm going to make sure it's in the center. And then you got to have this top of the heart or whatever shape you're using. If it's not going to be a heart, if it's a clover, if it's going to be whatever, because you're not working with a heart, you're working with something else. You want to make sure it goes beyond the original toolpath, and you want to have it wide enough that it gives you some good curvature whenever you go to put these pieces together. And I think that one's going to be a little bit much. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, not much, about there. Arrow it back up because that moved it down. Now grab me a toolpath. Come in here to the center intersection of the cross, go from center to center. That just creates a perfect place to rotate those hearts by selecting that heart, hold my shift, select that toolpath, go to circle array, start at 0, end in 360, 4 copies, and that positions them perfect around the cross. Ungroup the results, say OK, grab the bottom heart and arrow it down until it's just out of reach of the original piece. Select all 4 of them, group them, Control-D, duplicate them, and move those over. Now I'll select that group, hold my shift button, select the cross, weld them together. And now I've got 2 dog bone looking things. That does not look good at all. Now I'm going to leave this here temporarily because that might be something that's handy to have whenever you're going to be setting up your artwork, whatever you're going to be putting in there. But I'm going to turn it off so it's not in my way right now. And now I'm going to drag a toolpath from the side of my grid over here. So you move your arrow over until the arrow changes to the little squiggly line. Grab a toolpath, and I'm going to bring it right there to that corner. Now it's not selected, so I'm going to click on the toolpath to select it, and I want to hit Control-2. And that tells me I can select this as a point of rotation. And Control-2 is 2-point rotation. So I've selected 1 point, and now I'm going to select another point, and I'm going to bring that out till it snaps right there and gives me, you see it pop into place. And now I'm going to come up here to the top and grab a horizontal toolpath and bring it down until it snaps right into place. It will snap where those 3 pieces intersect. So now I'll select my cross, go into my node editing, and I want to insert a node here. And I'm going to come over here. And I don't have one over here where, actually I do. I don't need that 3rd one. I just need to put a node right here for letter I insert. And now select all of those. I didn't get all. Select all of those and hit the letter D for delete. And that got rid of that. Now I don't need those 2 toolpaths anymore. Get rid of that and that. I'm going to bring down another horizontal toolpath and bring it to that point. Control-2 or edit. Is it edit or is it tools or range? Where is the 2-point rotation? Tools. I always forget where it's at. 2-point rotation. Right there. 2-point rotate and scale. It's not highlighted right now because I forgot to choose the stupid tool path. So tools, no tool, arrange, 2-point rotate. I always just use the shortcut Control-2. But if you forget it, it's under the arrange and 2-point rotate. So select that. That's a fixed point. I want to leave it there. Then I can come out here and grab anywhere on the toolpath and rotate it up. And that toolpath is going to rotate as I scroll around. And I want to make it snap right there to that dog bone. Then I'm going to drag out a vertical toolpath and I'm going to make it snap right there where they intersect. Now, if I highlight the cross, go into node editing, put a node where they intersect with the letter I. And I'm going fast, guys, because I'm trying to show you it can be done quickly, and you can always back up and watch this again. Now, I've got that done, and I'm going to, I should have left it in node editing, select all those nodes and delete that. Now, watch this, pay attention. You may have to watch this twice. I'm going to grab that toolpath, hold my shift button and grab this toolpath. I'm going to group those together and I'm going to flip it. And now I'm going to use my arrow keys to arrow it over. And if I bring that to there using my arrow keys, I'm not using anything but arrow keys. And I can use really small increments of movement and arrow that over until I get right there where it intersects that corner. Then all I've got to do is go back into node editing, insert a node right there, letter I, come down here, letter I, delete everything to the west of that one, letter D for delete. And now I can get rid of that group. Oh, not that. Dummy. Undo. Selector tool. I always forget to do the selector tool. Now I just got to do it one more time. And we're about done with this. And you're going to see how fast these other 4 layers come together. So there, select it, Control 2, anchor point right in the corner right there. Come down here, grab this one, bring that out until it snaps right there. Bring one down from horizontal till it snaps right there. Select that again, go back into node editing, insert letter I, insert letter I, select everything else and get rid of it. Letter D is gone. And now come back up here, selector tool, delete that one, delete that one. Those are grouped together. And if I just arrow them back over, you'll see that there's where they go. That's the original size, and I don't need that. I'm going to, those are grouped together. I'm going to do an offset of 5 millimeters inward and say, okay. Those are grouped, and I'm going to hold my shift. No, I'm not. I'm going to select that cross and say Control D, duplicate it, hold my shift button and select the inner piece, group those, move it over here. Grab one of the original cross, Control D, duplicate it, move it over here. There's 2 of my 4 layers. I'm going to grab this one, and I could have done all the offset at one time. I've already done a 5. Say okay. With those selected, go ahead and do another one and say okay. With those selected, do another one and okay. So now I need to duplicate that, Control D, duplicate that cross. I don't need these. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that. I've already done that one, so I can get rid of that. So I've got that duplication. Hold my shift button and select that one. Group them. Zoom out and move that over here. Group all those. And that quick, I've just created that 4-layer piece. And I'm only 4 minutes past what I wanted to, and that was even after screwing up to begin with. So now those are there. Grab all of them, and I always screw up that. Is that? No, come on. those, and oh, there we go. So that quick, those 4 layers is what created this piece right here. And by using the different wood types, the zebra wood and the curly maple, give it that really, really distinct layer difference in layers. Guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me. And for everybody who did a little something today, thank you for the super thanks. You've got the options for the PayPal down there and the Zelle at the bottom. I don't do this. I don't, and I made it a point whenever I decided to go solo that I was not going to be, on that other channel, we were very, very candid about the fact that we were doing it and we were wanting you to donate, and Patrick and myself used that to help offset our expenses and supplies. But when I left there, I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ask and ask and ask. But the last 2 months have been really, really rough, financially speaking. So, and I thought this month was going to be good. I knew last month was going to be skinny, and I was prepared for that. But then October hit, and it's everything I have insured, everything insurance come due this month. I've already spent out $4,000 in insurance for the house, the RVs, the cars. It's just, and that put me back on the remodel. I haven't been able to buy the drywall and the wiring, but it is what it is, and things will be what they will be, and they will be in the time that they need to be in. And but even though I have that faith that that things will come to be as need to be, I still stress, and I try not to, but it does. And and let me scroll back up here to where people were saying, can't see. Thank you. Wow. And thank you, Karen. I greatly appreciate it. I think I've seen the other ones prior to yours. No, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Maybe I acknowledged you already, but thank you. If there's any before that, and I seen one below, Nipa. Is that new? Yeah, thank you, Nipa. I really appreciate you. Can't see. I finally figured that out. And not stupid, just human. Well, I like to call myself stupid. You got to be able to do a little bit of self-deprecation and, take it for what it is. Let's see here. Yeah, now at this point, if you felt like that this was a good stream and you learned a little something about how to maximize your material, use your material in advance to help you lay out that perfect design to maximize your material with minimal amount of waste, and set up a template for a basic sign design that you can then go back and add and create artwork for. And you don't have to, once you create that, doing the artwork's easy. And so, and if you can, and if you're doing craft shows and craft fairs, if you had a row of, 4 or 5 different signs with different artwork, the artwork's going to make them stand out and be unique from each other. And if you vary the size just a little bit, maybe they wouldn't even notice that they were all exactly the same template. If they do, it doesn't really matter. They're all different, and they're not typically going to. Maybe they do buy 2 or 3, and they have them all different places. One's for work, one's for home, one's for the office, whatever. Sorry, Steve. Would you like to send something small to you? But I would. And I'm telling you guys, my strokes have been really kicking in. Sorry, Steve, would like to send something small to you, but I'm waiting for my new bank card. Listen, brother, and you weren't here earlier, and because you weren't here, I did call you. You are a regular contributor, and I thank you for your support. And I wasn't asking support from my regulars. For those who contribute every week and they're regular patrons, I wasn't even asking those guys, because they do, and I appreciate it. This was an ask for those who haven't. And if you feel like that it's worth it, and you've gained something, and you've got those high numbers, you've learned something on all the videos, and you're not a patron and you don't buy this, and you don't need to, because if I've taught you how to do it, you don't need to buy them. But hey, use this right now. This is one time this year, and I'm not going to do this again this year. This is one time this year that I have. I'm saying, hey, help a brother out. Use those donation options right there to help a brother out. The last 2 months have really, really been financially challenging. And there are other things going on that my patrons know about that I don't share with everybody, and I'm not going to. But your financial appreciation would be greatly appreciated this month. But now I think somebody said it. I started to put up there. Yeah, hit the like button. Where is Peter? Hit that like button. At this point in the stream, if you felt like it was a good video, you gained something from it, click, 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 hit that like and share. I think there's some good information in here. We talked about, how you price it. We talked about how you figure out, how you charge, what you charge, when you charge for what you charge. Different jobs are going to require different pricing techniques. Setting up a basic template to where you can have a job ready. You can just go in and within a matter of minutes, you can create a special sign or something unique. We did that 4-layer cross in 15 minutes or less. And it's really something that's so simple to do. But I do encourage you, if you don't have exotic hardwoods, you don't have to do that. But what I would suggest is, even with your Baltic birch, you do the first and third layer as natural Baltic. And then on the second and fourth layer, stain it. Put a stain on it. And then, that will give you the different, and then you stain the back if you do that as well. So you have that contrast. And then also what I found that I liked, it's personal opinion and what appeals to you. Everybody's got different tastes, thank God, or else we'd all be eating vanilla ice cream. I took this and I partially finished this sanding the edges. I'm going to zoom in and focus that. But I didn't do it perfect. I left some of the burnt details and burnt edges around. But because this was 2 different distinct hardwoods, I didn't want to leave that all black. I wanted to show off the wood grains and the variations in the wood. So I cleaned it up a little bit, but did leave some burnt edges and texture to it. And I like the way that came out. You couldn't do that with your plywoods. You'd want to leave those burnt edges with the plies because the finished edges on plywood wouldn't look as good. So let's see. I'm going to look for any questions or comments before we get out of here. There's a question. Well, Steve, if I did not watch you, I would not have a rollie today. Well, congratulations on your rollie. It is an awesome machine. It really is. And the repeatability, that's something and that's the one thing that I learned from watching Clack on the X-Tool D1 was by setting a finished position on the job. If you have a laser, and I don't want to go off on too many derails, but if you have a laser that doesn't have homing switches, and there's a lot of them out there, if you hit home and the laser comes down and goes over and it hits, and it just bounces around until it's okay. All right. That's kind of home. If you don't have a repeatable home position that you go to every time, then set a finish position. You can home the laser and then set your finish position so that you can put a small little dot on the job and tell a laser to go out and do that real fast and go to a finish position of 20/20 or 100 by 100 or wherever you want it to be. And that's going to go there. And then as you're doing this job, if you're needing to resend the laser out on the same job, you're coming from that same position every time. It doesn't go down from this random home position. Go up there to the finished position, send out your job and do it. And like this job where I've got to do 5 or 10 passes and then let the wood cool off and then do 10 passes again. By having the rollie and its repeatability, I know that I can send it from home or from finished position. So having a quality piece of machine is extremely crucial, that you don't have to learn how to overcome the limitations of your laser. But learning how to overcome those limitations of the laser has also been valuable. Like I said, that was some valuable information that I got in the early days, learning how to get around the limitations of the X tool. And I imagine the X tool has gotten better since it came out in the D1, but I had enough problems with it and enough lack of support that I don't even give them the time of day. The fact that I've even said their name multiple times in this video goes against me. I don't even like to have the algorithm recognize the brand. Let's see here. Bless you, Ed. Much appreciated. Very much appreciated. And Jack, vanilla is one of my favorites too. But isn't it a good thing that we've got Rocky Road and Snickers and chocolate, and it'd be a pretty bland world if we were all eating vanilla. Let's see here. Watching you help me at the craft show last weekend. Well, I hope you did well, Ed. I hope it was worth your time. I hope it was financially feasible, and it doesn't discourage you. And if you're doing craft shows, I think you have to be committed to doing craft shows. Your very first one, you're lucky to even come close to breaking even. But now you've got leftover material to the next one, and you replenish what you sold, and you grow and grow and grow. I just don't have the time and or the patience to deal with folks in the retail environment anymore. Those are two flavors that I never did understand. Andy's mints, the little peppermint and chocolate, and peppermint and mint and chocolate. Oh, no, thank you. To me, it's kind of like grabbing a big old chunk of chocolate ice cream just after brushing your teeth. And that's the nastiest taste in the world. I can't understand it. But thank God there's people that do like it, or else we'd very vanilla, not good. Well, Dale, you got here. So Dale says, sorry, I'm late. Well, you got here in time for the sign off, because I am keeping this one done. All right. Thank you all. Thank you all who have contributed today. Thank you for all of them that don't show up here in the feed, because you did do the Zelle or you did do the PayPal Direct. I've heard the phone beeping, so I know people have been doing it, and I thank you for it. And and I'll just rum raisin, no. Wild cherry, yeah. Like I say, hey, Baskin Robbins was Baskin Robbins 33 flavors or 31 flavors. I forget what they were that they always had out there. Thank goodness for that. If for some reason I go dark, then it was a major health issue. I will, regardless what's going on, I'm going to be here for the lives. And the weekly videos are neglected sometimes, but I do contribute new files. I try to do them weekly and share those with the patrons as soon as I get them uploaded, so they know they're out there. They've known about these two designs since earlier in the week. I think I did one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday or Thursday. But if I go dark, it'll be because I'm laid up somewhere without access to the internet. Other than that, I'll be here. But if I go dark, it hopefully won't be for long, and I will then be followed up with an explanation. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed that. And like I said, these are super cool looking. And you just seen, I did that design and without any problems in 15 minutes. Now, I knew what tools I wanted and what order I needed them in. So that's how I was able to do it so quick. But you get that familiar with LightBurn, and you'll be doing it the same way too. And that's what I hope these videos are about. You learn how to do this yourself and not have to buy from me or Etsy or anywhere else. But an occasional thank you is greatly appreciated. All right. I'm going to get out of here. We're calling it before I hit that 2-hour mark. Guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Oh, and vote. If you're in the United States, vote. I'm not asking you to vote one way or the other. I'm asking you to get out and vote. And I'm also going to caution you that if you're not aware, it happened to me, and it happened. I just found out that my uncle, it happened to them too. the state of North Carolina, they went in and they cleaned up a whole lot of the names on the ballots. And I think inevitably or inadvertently, they deleted probably a bunch of names that shouldn't have been deleted, because I was no longer on the ballot. I was no longer I wasn't on the ballot. I'll never be on the ballot. I was no longer a registered voter. So when they cleaned up a lot of stuff, I was no longer registered to vote. But because I had gone to the elections office and not my regular, I went early, they were able to identify it and get me re-registered and allowed me to vote there on the spot. But my uncle just found out when they went to go to check that it looks like they've been knocked off of the voter registration. So with all of the maintenance that the different voter registrations have been doing, you may not be on there and you think you are. So if you don't typically vote early and you always go to vote, if you show up at your regular voting place, I don't know that they'll have the ability to get you registered on that day and allow you to vote that day. So be proactive, get out there and make sure you are registered, go out and vote. Again, I don't care which way you vote. I'm not even going to try and sway you one way or the other. Just go vote. All right. Enjoy your weekend. Guys, we'll see you at least next week, if not in a video in the meantime. Have a good one.